That's great. And I can see why, because it looked like it was very fun to work with.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely fun, definitely smart. We had an incredible team putting this together. Our dog trainer was amazing, the casting director, the production designer. We originally were going to shoot in Florida, and we ended up shooting in Louisiana to make it look like Florida.
I had a feeling it was somewhere in that area just because it looked swampy compared to Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I also liked that in the story, the angry landlord repents. That was always great. I always love stories where the antagonist or an antagonist. I like those stories where they repent sometimes, like what you see in cinema, how they turn good towards the end. Don't you?
I completely agree. I think that was the what we were going for, that the effect of Winn-Dixie and Opal on this community, even the most jaded person, the landlord, who we never thought would like Opal or never thought would like Winn-Dixie, is affected by her goodness and kindness and the dog spirit that she was able to reach into his heart and make him a friend as well.
Yeah, and basically convince him as well that he wasn't living life the way he could have lived in a healthy way with his emotions. And I think inside he knew that as well, because he accepted the invite right away. Like, he looked at it and then he just probably thought to himself, he was like, maybe this is something I need to do just to get myself out of my comfort zone.
Well, friendship was a big theme in the story, that Opal had left her friends. I don't know if you remember the beginning when she was playing baseball. She'd left her team and all her friends to move to Naomi, and she was feeling sad and lonely. And every single person she met had that feeling of loneliness and loss. And because they all needed a friend, and Opal came in and made friends, and then made another friend. Everybody in the town whom Opal met had a sense of loss and needed a friend. Opal needed a friend in the beginning. If you remember, she was on a baseball team and she had to leave her friends. And then when she moved there, she didn't have any friends, and she was praying, please let me just find a friend. And then she met people who normally wouldn't have been the friends of a little 8-year-old, 10-year-old girl. But she met all these people who in some ways also needed a friend and were feeling very lonely. And she was able to reach out to them and connect with them, and they loved Winn-Dixie. And so she eventually formed this little community of unusual people who all became friends with each other.
Yeah. And come to think of it, it's all about loss in the story and how everybody looked in the light afterwards, because litmus lozenges, or however you say that, and then someone losing Carson, her brother, and then
yes
it's all about loss and then overcoming it. That's really a good story to share with the world.
It's a great story, and it's a great story for kids, because again, we don't always credit children with being able to understand that feeling of loss, but many of them do. They've lost a parent or a grandparent, they've moved away, they've had to say goodbye to friends, they've lost a pet. So they've experienced loss in some way. And I think what Kate DiCamillo in the book was able to do was address that loss in a way that was understandable for them without pandering to them.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. And another thing just to bring up to the previous thing, when the preacher admitted that it was his fault, that it happened, he didn't tell Opal what exactly ended his marriage, but, because he needed to protect his privacy, but he did kind of tell her the full picture of why he was struggling, which was having to own up to the fact that he had driven her mom away from him,
Yeah. I mean, again, very adult topics and very adult subject matter, but told in a way that is a wonderful tale and in a loving, caring way that I think every audience I've seen it with, from grown-ups down to young kids, all identify with. And then you have a dog, and
the dog makes it better.
the dog makes everything goes better with a dog. But that dog also had a story of how it ended up in the Winn Dixie, lost and alone.
That's just great.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm just, 20 years later, it's just terrific to see that it's still finding an audience and kids are loving it and the book is still out there. And I'm just fortunate that my daughter read it and said to me, "You have to read this book."
That's great, because that this is what happened, and now you'll be able to say years later that you impacted so many people.
Well, thank you. That's a very sweet thing to say. Well, Kate DiCamillo is a marvelous writer, a marvelous author. I don't know if you know anything about what she did before, but she worked actually for a book distribution company before she wrote Winn Dixie. And she had moved from Claremont, Florida, where the book was originally set, to, I want to say, Minnesota. And so she was experiencing some loss and displacement of having to move from her home to another place. And she was packing and picking and helping ship books out to bookstores. And I think she looked and said one day, I think I've got a book inside me. I think I can write a book. So she would get up every morning around 4:00 in the morning and write for a few hours before she would go to work. And she did it. And eventually she had her book finished. And then to find a publisher, Candlewick, this was their first chapter book. They've gone on to do many, many more, but they were mainly known for board books, but they fell in love with this book. So it was just one of those coincidental things. Everything happened at the right time.
I would have to agree with you on that. So yeah, that's really great that years later, both the author and you, Kate, and all that, they impacted the world in a great way and helped so many people with, the messages. It's just, I'm sure that, just a question, do
Sure.
people come up to you and ask ask you anything about the show when they see you?
Well, I don't think they recognize me per se, but once they know that I've done the movie, they have lots of questions, and they're all like, "Oh, I love that movie. Oh, I love that book. Oh, my kids love that book. Oh, I remember that book." So it's very gratifying. It's very gratifying. I feel like it just, a little providential. It dropped in my lap here in a really wonderful way. And I have to credit the bookstore that suggested the book, which was Dutton's bookstore in Brentwood in Santa Monica in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, it's gone the way of many bookstores where it's not there anymore, but it was their children's department who said to me when I came in to say, I need a book for my daughter that will catch her attention. And they gave me a couple, but they said, "You're going to love this one because of Winn Dixie." And they were right.
Cool.
They were.
How the stars aligned and all that,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was terrific.
Good to hear. So yeah, that's all I have really for now. But yeah, we'll definitely bring you on again down the road, just as a follow-up to the rest of your career, if you'd like.
Well, thank you. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I have enjoyed speaking with you. I congratulate you on your show. And I love your background. It's great. So we have, as we said, your posters behind there. One of them is the DVD poster, and one is the cover of the book. And this is the poster, one of the posters from the movie. So it was the studio put a lot of work behind it, and I appreciate that.
Good to hear. So can you just say a quick message for Trisha and everybody in my 4th grade, if possible?
Absolutely. Hi, Trisha. Hi, everybody who went to school with Doug. Thank you for reading the book. Thank you for watching the movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you picked it as one of your choices. You might not know this, but when we were making the movie, the entire state of Florida chose this book as its book to read for, I think they had a book to read month. And so adults and children all read this book for the entire month, or an entire month, and then talked about it. So it's a popular book, and you guys made a wonderful choice. Keep reading. I always encourage people when they want to talk about the movie to make sure they've read the book. So read the book and then see the movie.
Yep, and I'm the same way. Keep reading. Yep.
Keep reading. Keep reading. That's where I always go and find my stories and enjoy reading.
Yep.
And going to the movies. Yeah. And going to the movies.
Yep. So anyway, I want to thank you for appearing on the channel, and we'll speak again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Doug. Thank you very much.
No problem. And thank you for producing such a great movie.
Thank you. I had a good team, really good team.
Good to hear. Thanks so much.